You usually have to have the last word. The one time you don't, you hear them say exactly what they really feel. You get the opportunity to hear directly from their mouth the things that you have been hearing about. And you realize that it's not been gossip. It's real. You would usually fly off the handle at a moment like this, feeling betrayed and super bothered by the gall and audacity. The one time you don't, you acknowledge that down the line, this would have been the point that you would say that you should have left. So you face that fact and you accept the reality. You usually give up at this point, get mad, and make up a bunch of reasons and excuses on why you should blame you. The one time you don't, you break through what you thought was about to break you. You know you have to get over this. You accept the time that it is going to take. You don't even allow this to be about anyone other than them. You look in the mirror and you see the same you. And it would usually take you a minute to recover from something like it. Fears and caution would begin to take up residence. And the next thing you know, you're giving yourself anxiety and forcing apprehension to be the guard that keeps you guarded and the way you prevent something like this from happening again. The one time you don't, you realize that you don't need to do any of that. Because if you do, then they win. Anyway, you usually give them way too much credit. Too much leeway, too much slack, too much wiggle room, and too much of an opportunity to disappoint, disregard, or disrespect you for no reason. The one time you don't, all of that changes. They find out who they can play with. They figure out that it is not you. You stood on what you said, and now they believe it. But you usually give them far too much power, like the first 9 paragraphs of a 9-paragraph poem. The one time you don't surrender to everything that are their wants and needs over your own, you find out just how unimportant you really are to them. And who you thought they were is not who they are. Fact of the matter is, you don't really know them. You usually let something like this be the molehill that turns into a mountain that becomes one of the many things you can't seem to climb. The one time you don't, you see that shit not even matter as much as you thought it would, or you would usually allow it to. And now it's not even a chip on your shoulder. It's just a part of life that you don't seem to mind. Still, you would usually internalize, then personalize, then penalize yourself for not being a better manager of what you expected that relationship or dynamic to be. The one time you don't, you realize that a lot of people have taken advantage of the you that just wanted things to work out for everyone, even if it was at your own expense. And this time, you're not exposed or exhausted by their antics. It's about you being responsible with and having respect for yourself. It's just not the you that they expected to see. You would usually use an incident like this as the impetus for an immediate change, a drastic doing of something different, and a reason to recuse yourself from being in the company of anyone for a period or a season. The one time you don't, you see that no one should ever have that kind of power to alter the way you live your life. And this time, you choose you over who they try to act like you are. You don't need their validation or approval to keep going. You being okay with you is a good enough reason. You usually put them first. And you, wherever is most convenient and considerate to their egos and effective at getting them to be more receptive to the level you have to downgrade to in order to make them feel safe, secure, and significant. The one time you don't, you see that there's no need for you to play yourself small anymore. Selfish, inconsiderate, and people that manipulate are going to be selfish, inconsiderate, and manipulative, whether or not you recognize that their problem with you is that you're magnificent. You usually choose to put the needs, wants, desires, and demands of others before your own because you're trying to convince them that you're no threat, not someone they have to worry about, but in fact, someone they can trust and count on to support and someone who is going to be with them all the way. The one time you don't, you realize that they don't need you to be that for them. You need to be that for yourself. Not selfish, just self first, in order to be a better whatever you are and to anyone else. Because in order for things to be different, you'll have to be different. And then a whole lot of things will change.